Hi friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. I am here today to talk about all the books that I read in the month of May, and there are a lot of them. I've been dreading filming this wrap up because this is the second month in a row when I did not do a mid-month wrap up, and I hate it because I have so many books to talk about now, so many. And wrap-ups are just not my favorite. And I think I figured out why. I love the excitement of what's coming up in books, and I love the actual reading of books. And once I finish a book, I'm done with it. I don't want to come back and talk about it later. Oftentimes I don't remember that much about it. I like looking forward in my reading and in the present, but I don't like looking back. And so I honestly don't watch a lot of wrap-up videos, and I don't like filming them. So I need to figure out a different system. This is ridiculous how much I've actually been dreading sitting down and pushing record on my camera. Oh man. But here we are. I haven't even counted. I have a huge stack of books to talk about. So let's just jump right in. I will start with my Patron books. There are two that are connected to my Patreon. And for the month of May, we read Yellow Crocus by Layla Ibrahim. This month, I chose 3 books that had a flower in the title, and they picked the one they wanted to read. And so Yellow Crocus was the winner. And I enjoyed this, but I didn't love it. I think I ended up giving it 3.5 stars, 3.5 stars. We follow Maddie and Elizabeth, and Maddie is a young enslaved woman who just had a baby. He's probably just not even barely a couple months old. And she is called to move up to the big house because the plantation owner and his wife just had a baby, and she is going to be the nurse. She's going to be the wet nurse, and she is going to care for the child. So she has to leave her own child to go care for someone else's child. However, a strong bond is formed between Maddie and Elizabeth, the young baby girl that she has to care for. And we kind of follow these two women through the book. I did feel like I liked Maddie's story more than Elizabeth's story. There was a couple parts as Elizabeth was getting older. We go through decades, and as she's getting older and she's kind of encouraged or almost forced to marry this one particular man, and we walk through his house, and his whole house is described. I'm like, I don't care what his house is like. It's too short to spend time on this. There were other things that I wanted a little bit more about, like certain things in Maddie's life that I just wanted more details about. But their paths kind of intertwine throughout the course of the story, and it is wrapped up in an unrealistic bow, which I don't usually mind when things are wrapped up really nicely. But I don't know, there was just something that I was wanting a little bit more punch from this book. It felt very tender, but there wasn't as much punch, emotional punch, I guess, is from what I was wanting. And I also realized, with the help of someone else who mentioned this, I recently have read Yellow Wife by Sadiqa Johnson, which is also set here in Richmond, and this is set here in Richmond, Virginia as well. And Yellow Wife had the punch that this one did not. Yellow Wife will stick with me. I will not forget that book. It is a powerful read. This felt like a good story, but not a powerful read. So I'm glad I read it, but it is going in my Pango Books unhaul pile. Every month I also choose a book that a patron recommends to me, and I put them all in a hat and kind of pick one out. And I chose for May, The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak. And unfortunately, I DNF'd this book. I made it like 70% into the audio, maybe not quite that much, 60%, more than halfway. And it just isn't the book for me. It's too slow paced. There's a perspective of a tree in here, and I just really did not care what was going on in the actual story. There wasn't much of a story. We're following a couple different characters in Cyprus, and there's a lot of history about the island of Cyprus and the tensions between the Turks and the Greeks in Cyprus. But then also there's a more current day timeline as well of a young girl and her dad living here in the United States. And I just didn't care, and I was bored, so I DNF'd it. That's the end of that one. Then I have my 12 books in 23, and I've been doing so good with reading one every month. And in May, I read Unwritten by Charles Martin. I have been wanting to read more from him because I have read one so far and really enjoyed it, The Long Way Gone or something like that. And I really liked it. This one was okay, but it was pretty slow paced. And I have heard from many people who have read a lot of Charles Martin that this was a 3-star read for them, whereas most of his other books are 4 or 5 stars. So this isn't a favorite of most people who do enjoy his work. Right early in the book, we meet this priest who is connected to a couple other people that become main characters throughout the book. We follow a woman named Katie Quinn, who is a movie star and very popular with the public, and yet her life she's miserable and actually attempts to take her own life a couple different times. But the priest is there to save her. But then he kind of introduces her to this other man who lives off the grid, off the coast of Florida in the Thousand Islands or something. I think 10,000 Islands. I forget what it's called. But he lives in this like swampy fishing area off the coast of Florida. And he kind of introduces these two people and their lives kind of go from there. I did find the ending, like the last maybe 10% or so, 15%, really moving, and did get a little bit emotional as I was reading it. And it does talk a lot about forgiveness and how our brokenness can help other people to heal as if we are willing to be vulnerable. And I did like the connectedness of these two broken people and how it wasn't a toxic relationship at all, but they really challenged each other and supported each other. And I just really liked that, but it was kind of slow. So it only is getting 3 stars from me, and I'm putting this on my Pango pile as well. So far, not so great, huh? Then we have, let's go ahead next and do my 2 buddy read group read book club books. And the first is our first middle grade March book club book, and that is Kelly Barnhill's The Ogres and the Orphans. I really did enjoy this. It's getting 4 stars for me. I think Kelly Barnhill is a beautiful writer. I really love the way that she writes. There were some lines and some sentences in here that just were really, really beautiful. And the overall message of kindness and generosity and finding the best in others and taking care of your neighbors, and that the power of story and community, all of those messages I loved. I also really loved the character of the orphans and the ogress, like those main characters that are in the title. I really, really loved their characters. However, it is quite a bit too long. There were parts that dragged out or that were a little bit slow. I didn't mind the slowness that much because of the writing being so beautiful. But I also was like, okay, come on, let's move this story along. And also she wrote this in direct response to some things that were happening in the political scene here in America. And it's very obvious and heavy-handed. Her disdain for certain people and political stances. And I did not like that political side of things. I think it could be glossed over in conversation with kids, and I didn't dwell on it that much, and I found a lot that I did really like, but it's in here, and I didn't love that. So that's The Ogres and the Orphans. This is getting 4 stars, and I really enjoyed it. I also, kind of on a whim, picked up the book that Double Booked Co., Danny and Laura, who run Double Booked Co. on Etsy. They have a book club with their shop, and in the month of May, they were reading The Tilbury Ladies Choir by Jennifer Ryan. I said, you know what? I have that on audio. Let me just go ahead and read that. And I was so delightfully surprised by this. I did end up giving it 4 stars. It's an epistolary novel about this small English town, Tilbury, and we mainly follow the women in this town. There are a handful of men there, but we mainly follow the women. And I liked that it's not just from one person's perspective writing in their journal. There are journal entries and letters that are written, and we follow, I think, 4 or 5 different women throughout the course of a couple months, maybe even longer, in the early days of World War II, and how the war affects the town, how the war affects the people, the women that are in this town. Many of the men have gone off to participate in the war in different ways, and so the choir in the town had been shut down. And then this one little feisty woman comes to town and is determined to kind of have the choir anyway and just have it be a ladies' choir. and then we get to meet all of the different personalities. I thought the vibes of this were very similar to Guernsey Literary Potato Peel Pie Society, in that the war is definitely present and there are definitely some heavy-duty things going on. However, the vibe and the feel of this story was much lighter, and I thought there were a lot of characters that were really pretty well developed for such a short book, and for it being written in letters. I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this very much, and I'm so glad that they gave me the little kick that I needed to pick it up. Now, if you remember back to my TBR for the month of May, I asked Becca from Beccas Books in Bujo to play her Deck of TBR game for me. And so I have this stack of books that were the books that I chose based on the cards that she drew. So we'll just kind of talk through these. I will tell you, I did not read Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. I started it. I at least cracked it open. And I do really want to read this. My May just got crazy and I just didn't get to that one. And I also didn't even open the book of this one, More Than We Can Tell. But I did read 4 of the books I picked with Becca. So let's talk through these real quick. Just Haven't Met You Yet by Sophie Cousins was one of my Christmas book exchange books. I really enjoyed this for the most part. In this story, we follow Laura. She goes to the Channel Islands for an article that she's writing. She's like a lifestyle blogger for a web page, something along those lines. And she's going there to kind of look up some of her family history for her job. In the airport, she kind of has a meet cute with the most gorgeous man she's ever met before. And then when she arrives, her luggage gets switched. She brings home somebody else's luggage, and after going through the luggage, she's convinced that she is meant to be with the person whose luggage she now has. In the meantime, there's a cab driver who starts driving her around, and they start up a friendship. So there's a little bit of a love triangle going on, and it was just very sweet and fun. And I listened to this on a road trip, and it was a perfect road trip read. I was a little bummed at one point because one of the points of the triangle, one of the people in this love triangle is not fully divorced. They're just separated. And that's just a little pet peeve of mine. I mean, it was headed in that direction. So whatever, it's fine. But I still just don't love that. So I enjoyed this. It is ultimately pretty forgettable. I enjoyed it, but I'm not going to remember it for long. I got a couple of NetGalley books knocked out this month, and one of them was a middle grade, The One and Only Ruby by Catherine Applegate, and I absolutely love this series. I think I gave this 4.5 stars. I thought that this had a lot of heart. Ruby is a feisty little young elephant who is about to have her tusking ceremony, or I forget what they called it. Like her tusks are about to start growing in. And so that's kind of a rite of passage in elephant culture, if you will, of this book. And we also have scenes with Bob and Ivan, who are the characters from the previous 2 books in this trilogy or companion series. And yeah, Ruby was just a lot of fun. She doesn't want to grow up. She doesn't even really know at first why she's not thrilled about this tusking ceremony. But then throughout the book, she addresses some of her memories. Elephants are known for having really good memories. And she tells her story to Ivan and Bob. And we learn about how she ended up coming to America from Africa and what occurred and the trauma of that. And she addresses it and then has some really nice moments with some of the older elephants. I just thought it was really lovely. This is written in free verse, so it is a relatively quick read. Oh, there's a bookmark in there. Don't want to return that to the library. I was glad that there were illustrations on the Kindle app as well, because they're just so sweet. The pictures of Ruby and Ivan and Bob, and even just the little things that are in there. I just think that the illustrations are lovely. I loved this. Love, love, love. Catherine Applegate is one of my favorites forever and always. Then I read another NetGalley book that I did not love, and I think this will be my last Christina Lauren. I read The True Love Experiment, and I just really didn't care for this very much. I had high hopes for it because I do like a reality TV setting. I'm a junkie for like all those love story, and I say that very loosely, reality shows like Love is Blind and Love Island and The Bachelor, all those kind of shows. They're kind of like a guilty pleasure for me. I enjoy them, even though I know 100% they're ridiculous and not reality, right? But this book is supposed to be set on a reality dating show. So we have our producer. He wants to film serious documentaries, and he has filmed a couple documentaries, but his boss at his job wants him to produce this, a dating show, a dating reality show. He wants to stay in San Diego where his daughter is instead of having to move back to LA. So he wants to keep this job. So he agrees to do this project, especially when he decides that the main female lead of the show should be this author, Fizzy Chen, who we first meet in The Soulmate Equation. So this is a companion novel to The Soulmate Equation. Fizzy is the best friend of the main female lead in that book. Fizzy is a very popular and successful romance author, and she's very feisty and says what she means and very sex positive and just very open about all of this stuff. But she's having a little bit of a dry spell, both in her romantic life and in her writing life. And so agrees to do this show where she's going to be presented with some men who have matched with her according to this dating DNA thing that's in the Soulmate Equation, and yet has the most chemistry, of course, with the producer. I was hoping for a lot more reality dating show footage or scenes, but it really was just about Fizzy and Connor, and it was just very sexual. It was just very lusty. They did eventually get to know each other on a deeper level, but oh my word, so much of it was just, he's hot, I'm hot, we want to jump into bed with each other. And then there were some pretty steamy open door, like right there in the bedroom with them, scenes that I was like, no, thank you. I don't need to be here with you in this moment. Yeah. And again, the language just wasn't great. So I finished it because it was a NetGalley book. I didn't need to finish it because it's a NetGalley. I have DNF'd NetGalley books before. Whatever. I finished it and I'm giving it 2.5 stars. I did love the healthy relationship between Connor and his ex-wife. They're divorced and they have an 11-year-old daughter, and it was so healthy. They had really good conversation. They supported each other. They even had like a level of friendship at this point, and that was really nice to see. And I also loved seeing Fizzy's Filipino, I believe. I think it was Filipino. I could be wrong, but Fizzy's family had some cultural, her brother got married and there was some cultural aspects to the wedding that I really liked, and her family was just really supportive. There were surrounding elements of the story that I really did like and appreciate, but the actual story of Fizzy and Connor, I just didn't care for Fizzy. I thought Connor was a nice guy and I liked his character, but Fizzy was annoying and just over the top for me most of the time. But I did like her friendship with the girl from the first book. I don't remember her name. There were aspects that I liked, but there was definitely a decision made. Done. Christina Lauren and I are done. Oh my word, I still have a couple more. The final book from my Deck of TBR with Becca book that I read was a thriller, The Soulmate. Actually, I think it was a book of the month that I had to pick, and I gave Becca a couple choices and she picked The Soulmate for me by Sally Hepworth. Man, I read this so long ago. I think this was the first book that I finished in May. In this book, we follow a husband and wife who kind of live up on this cliff, and there's a cliff walk behind their house. And right behind their house is a spot where it is kind of known that people go there to end their life. They jump off the cliff and it's very precarious. The husband of this couple has been able multiple times to talk people off the ledge. As soon as they see somebody, he'll run out there and he's just, for whatever reason, able to connect with people and bring them literally off the ledge. Until one day, he's not able to do that. They're wrapping up from dinner, look out the window, there's a woman standing out there. He runs out as he does. She calls 911 as she does. And unfortunately, this woman goes over what happened. So the wife thinks she sees things in a certain way. Why was this woman why was he not able to convince her to leave? And yes, ultimately, there is more to the story that meets the eye from both the wife and the husband of this story. There is a touch of an adulterous relationship in here. It is not like seen. It's not on the page, but it is in conversation, and it is actually the more I think about it. A big part of this story, I won't say more than that because I feel like it's spoilery, but it didn't bother me in this respect because this is not a romance. This is almost a more of a mystery. It's not super thrillery. I wasn't like on the edge of my seat wanting to know what happened, but I was very curious. Yeah, I really liked it. I like Sally Hepworth a lot. So I will continue to read from her, and yay for reading a book of the month book. Yay. So that's the end of my Becca books. I have just 3 left to talk to you about. And one of them is this. I can't believe how much I read this month, but I did finish Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I started this in April and completed it in May, and this was fantastic. I don't read a ton of fantasy. You guys who've been here a while, I read a little bit, especially middle grade, but every once in a while, I get a little urge to read some fantasy, and I'm definitely going to continue in the Stormlight Archives. This is the first book, The Way of Kings. Oh my word, there's so many characters and there's so much world building going on. Brandon Sanderson is genius, the way that things get woven together, the way that you're learning more and more about the world. There were definitely points that I felt overwhelmed, so I can't say without feeling overwhelmed, because I did feel overwhelmed quite a bit. But mainly we're following 3 different characters, Kaladin, Dalinar, and Shaylin. And I really was invested in all 3 of those storylines all the way through. I do feel like I need to continue because I just feel like there's so many holes still of things that I have questions about and things that I want to know more about. I will just say I was very invested in this. I listened to the audio, which was beautiful. I loved the audiobook. I did start it in print, and I did pop back into the book occasionally because there are pages that have different drawings and illustrations. I'm not sure when I will continue, but I absolutely loved this. 5 stars. I cannot wait to continue with this saga, this monstrous saga. I feel like this is a book, and I did this as a buddy read with a group of people, and I kind of like fell off the bandwagon because once I'm in it, I'm just in it, and I don't want to stop to talk to my buddies. But there's a woman who was reading it with us, Judy, who has read this before. So this was not her first time, and her perspective was so great. And I do feel like this is a book that I could revisit for sure and pick up on more things. And especially now that I have a baseline understanding of the story, I can go back in and appreciate some of the details even more because there's just a lot. There's a lot. I don't even know how his brain works. I don't know. But this is fantastic. So good. I read another middle grade class act. This is very overdue at my library. I think I've had this out since March. It is the sequel to New Kid, which won the Newbery. And this one, class act by Jerry Craft, a graphic novel. It has really cool, I like the graphic novel style. But we're still in middle school with these kiddos. They're coming back for, I think, 8th grade now. And where in the first book we followed Jordan, this book we follow mostly Drew. Jordan is definitely still a character in here, still a part of the story. But I do think these books, this book in particular, is a great tool for bringing up conversations about race with middle school age kids. Drew is a young Black boy. Jordan is a boy who is a mixed race. His parents are mixed race, and then their other best friend is white and very privileged, very fancy house. And in this, through the course of this story, Jordan and Drew do go to their friend's house, and it's a great opportunity to talk about economic differences and privilege. And some of the teachers in here really made me mad, but overall I thought this was a really great story. I think I'd give it 4 stars, and I don't really have much else to say about it. And now we come to the rom-com ending of the story of the month. I think this is going to be it. But I did read The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. I had heard from someone that she is a clean contemporary romance author, and it's true. So I read 3 Sarah Adams books in the month of May. I had a 9+ hour car ride going up to New York a couple weeks ago, and I listened to lots of these during that time. In The Cheat Sheet, we have a friends to lovers situation, longtime best friends, I think since high school, Bree and Nathan. And Nathan is like an NFL player, and Bree is a dancer, but she injured herself, so now she just has her own ballet school. But they're best friends, and the difficulties that presents to the women that Nathan tries to date or attempts to date, even though They're really both in love with each other, but we are never in the bedroom with them. And there's really only one hint of the fact that they got together in that way. It's very clean, lots of build up, lots of good conversation. It was just a fun, sweet romance. I really enjoyed this. And then I read 2 more by her. The Off Limits Rule, which is a like brother's little sister or best friend's little sister trope. Is that the trope name of the trope? I don't know. But a girl, I don't even remember. See, this is the thing about these kind of books. I usually only end up giving them 3 stars. I fully enjoy them while I'm reading them, but I don't remember. They do not leave an imprint on my mind whatsoever. So the Off Limits Rule is just what it means, like just what it says. Like the friend of the brother thinks the little sister is totally off limits. The brother tells him it's off limits, but they cannot control the chemistry. So the brother has to go away for a work trip or something, and the two get together, start talking. Clearly there's a lot of chemistry there. She speaks her mind. She's not like all of the made up girls that he dates. She's just more down to earth and low maintenance, and he loves that, but he also thinks she's gorgeous and yada yada. And then it's like sickeningly sweet when they get together. And then I also read the companion to that one that was called The Temporary Roomie, also by Sarah Adams. I listened to these on Scribd, I think. The Temporary Roomie, we follow the brother from the first book and the best friend of the girl, the sister in the first book. They work together at a hair salon. The best friend, Jessie, she is pregnant, and her house that she owns needs a lot of work, and she needs a place to stay. So she goes to stay with Connor, or like the first couple, her best friend, for a little bit, but they have a little kid. Turns out that's not working so well, so she ends up moving in with his brother. They have a hate to love relationship. So here's the tropes. So we had the friends, best friends to lovers, and then we had the best friend's little sister, and now we have the hate to love. And they play pranks on each other, and they're just kind of mean to each other, but there is this underlying tension. Not mean, they're not mean. They don't say mean things to each other, but they prank each other all the time, and they challenge each other, and they're not like laughing funny haha with each other, but they love the pranking of each other. And the brother has always been this character who needs to take care of everybody else. And he's a doctor, OBGYN actually. And so he just feels this release and comfort with this girl who just challenges him all the time and doesn't need him to take care of her. And he's allowed to just rest and have fun with her. And to watch their relationship change was really sweet. All 3 of them, there was like 0 spice level. Lots of good banter, lots of fun conversation, but nothing that I'm going to really remember, but also they were just thoroughly enjoyable. So if you're looking for a clean contemporary romance, Sarah Adams might be a place to look. And that, my friends, is going to do it. I've been talking 36 minutes. I really don't like doing wrap-ups, but here we go. I'm going to stack these up. So here you have it. These are the books that I read in May, plus the 2 other Sarah Adams books that I don't have a copy of. But so many books, so many good books that I read in May. And I will say, I have 3 more that are my Read Like Tiffany books for the month. I have completed 2 of them so far, and I have 1 more to go. So I'm not going to talk about these yet, because these are going to be in my Read Like Tiffany wrap up as soon as I finish this 3rd one. I'm really at the beginning of it. I have so much more to go, but I did complete 2 of those as well. That's it. Let me know if you have thoughts about any of these books. Do you feel the same way I did about any of them? Do you feel differently than I did about any of them? I would love to chat with you about these books or anything else that you want to talk about in the comments down below. I would love to hear what was your favorite read from the month of May and what you're reading right now. And if you're liking it, let's chat books. I love talking with you in the comments, and I really appreciate you being here and supporting my channel and just hanging out with me for a little bit today. Thank you so much. Sorry this was so long. I will try to do a mid-month wrap up in June and moving forward. I just feel like I need that. I need that in my life because this is not fun. All right. I'll talk to you later. Thank you so much for being here again. And I look forward to chatting with you in another video very soon. Bye.